It was May 13, 2008, when the disappearance of Roze Pizem, a 4-year-old girl, began to draw the attention of Israeli authority. The little girl lived in Netanya, north of Tel Aviv, with her mother, Roze Pizem, and her paternal grandfather, Roman Zadorovi. The case quickly spread through local media, and in the early days, the explanations were confusing. Marie told the police that her daughter had been left in her grandfather's care, but Roman insisted that he had never been with the child that day. From that point on, tensions escalated. Marie, a French woman who had moved to Israel after marrying Ronnie P. Rose's father, had become romantically involved with her father-in-law Roman. This peculiar detail led investigators to delve deeper into the family's history. The relationship between Marie and Ronnie was already strained, and the coexistence of the 3 adults and the child had become increasingly unstable. According to neighbors and teachers, Roze was shy but sweet. Nothing seemed to indicate that something serious might happen. By the end of May, police intensified the search. Sniffer dogs, helicopters, and divers were deployed. Meanwhile, Marie's version of events began to show inconsistencies. First, she claimed she had left the girl with Roman at the bus terminal. Later, she said she had returned to the apartment and Roze was no longer there. When confronted, Roman and Marie avoided looking at each other. It wasn't until the end of August that the investigation took a darker turn. A maintenance worker reported seeing a man throwing a suitcase into the waters of the Yarkon River in Tel Aviv. Police scoured the area for days until they found the suitcase, sealed with tape and partially submerged. The suspicion was that it could be linked to the Roze Pizem case. One striking detail stood out. The suitcase resembled the one Marie often used during her travels. By then, public opinion was already stirred. But what had really happened to Roze? What could have driven an entire family into contradiction? Forensic analysis confirmed that the suitcase found in the Yarkon River had traces that led directly to the apartment where Marie and Roman lived. Fabric fibers, organic material remnants, and even a strand of hair matching Rose's were crucial in giving the investigation new momentum. Marie was called in for another deposition. This time, her behavior was more evasive. Questions piled up, and her answers came with long pauses, silences, and distant looks. Roman, on the other hand, began to show signs of emotional exhaustion. In a moment of apparent regret, he revealed something that would completely change the course of the investigation. He said Roze was an obstacle to his relationship with Marie. He confessed that he felt the child was interfering with his plans with his partner. This statement shocked the entire country, which had followed the case as a poorly explained disappearance, but had not imagined something so complex behind it. In September 2008, the police officially named Roman as the main suspect. However, authorities also began investigating Marie's involvement more thoroughly. According to investigators, she had knowledge of what had happened to the girl and may have helped cover it up. Messages exchanged between the couple, obtained after a communication records breach, indicated discussions about the child's future and a possible separation between Marie and Ronnie, Rose's biological father. The turning point came when Marie, under pressure from testimony and public outcry, admitted that Roman had left the house with Roze that morning and returned alone. She also said that he convinced her to stay silent and that she felt emotionally dominated. The love story between daughter-in-law and father, already scandalizing society, was now turning into a plot of mutual suspicions and concealment. How did a seemingly normal family reach this point? What do you think really happened to Roze? Share your theory in the comments below. With the new revelations, the investigation entered its most intense phase. On September 10, 2008, Roman was formally arrested. Prosecutors stated that the evidence gathered thus far pointed to a premeditated plan. Still, Marie remained free, though under surveillance. The public was divided between those who believed she was a victim of manipulation and those who saw her as a direct accomplice. In the following days, testimonies from friends and neighbors began to paint a more complex picture of Rose's life. Some reported that the girl had shown signs of sadness in the months leading up to her disappearance. Others said she did not have a good relationship with her grandfather, and that the move to his apartment had made her even more withdrawn. Marie's lack of visible emotion during media appeals also caught investigators' attention. The coldness with which she handled the situation was unsettling. In October, a psychological report commissioned by the defense attorneys was released. The document stated that Roman exhibited narcissistic traits and excessive emotional control over Marie. This reinforced the hypothesis that she might have acted out of submission. Even so, prosecutors did not rule out her responsibility. The case was now in every Israeli newspaper, with daily headlines and heated television debates. Meanwhile, Ronnie Pizem, Rose's biological father, appeared publicly for the first time. He gave an emotional statement, demanding justice and that those responsible be held accountable. He said he had been fighting for months to regain custody of his daughter, but faced resistance from his own father, Roman, and his ex-wife. the revelation that he had been kept out of Roze's life due to the couple's influence raised even more questions about the motives behind the custody battle. With the two main suspects on a collision course and new information emerging, the case was about to take an unexpected turn. In November 2008, the prosecution formally charged Roman's detailing his conduct during the disappearance. What shocked most was the account of the morning of May 13th, reconstructed through timelines, camera footage, and cross-referenced testimonies. Security footage showed Roman leaving the building with a heavy suitcase just hours after the last confirmed sighting of Roze. No camera ever captured the girl again after that moment. Authorities also presented GPS and cell phone signal data, confirming that Roman was near the Yarkon River that same day. With this, the connection between him and the suitcase became nearly undeniable. The defense tried to argue that he had only discarded personal belongings, but forensic testing confirmed biological traces inside the suitcase. Authorities responded firmly. There was enough evidence to bring him to trial. Meanwhile, Marie began to change her attitude. She went from being reserved to more open, giving selective interviews. In one, she said she didn't know what Roman had done, but had always suspected something. Society, which once viewed her as a potential victim, began to divide. The public prosecutor's office then included her in the investigation as an indirect accomplice, and she began to be monitored full-time. In January 2009, a pretrial hearing was held, and prosecutors made a point of showing that the case was not just a crime of passion, but a family drama exposing the fragility of a dysfunctional structure. With all the elements gathered, the judge authorized the trial to proceed. The sessions would be open to the public, and the courtroom would be packed in the coming week. At that moment, a new figure emerged, a former employee of the family who had worked as Roze's nanny for 6 months. In her testimony, she revealed that the relationship between Roman and Marie was marked by tension, and that the girl was often left isolated. She said she had witnessed heated arguments but never imagined they could end the way they did. Her account added an essential element to the case, the idea that the environment had been unstable long before May 2008. Do you think Marie was an accomplice or just remained silent out of fear? Share your opinion in the comments below. The trial officially began in March 2009. The courtroom was packed, with journalists from several countries following every detail, and the atmosphere was one of anticipation. The first to testify was one of the investigators responsible for examining the suitcase found in the Yarkon River. He confirmed that tests had detected particles matching the apartment where Roze lived, as well as signs that the suitcase had been kept in a damp place before being thrown into the river. This supported the theory that there had been a calculated attempt to hide the evidence. Roman remained silent throughout most of the sessions, avoiding direct answers and looking down. Marie, however, surprised everyone by testifying in a firm tone. She stated that Roman had returned that morning in May with a different look, that he was nervous and said he had taken care of everything. When asked if she questioned what he meant by that, she replied that she didn't have the courage. The most impactful testimony came from the psychologist assigned by the court to evaluate Marie. She stated that the woman showed signs of severe emotional dependence, mixed with guilt and denial. According to the expert, Marie was tied to a figure who exercised control over her decisions, which explained her passive reaction to her daughter's disappearance. The court still had to decide whether this condition was enough to absolve her of responsibility. Mid-trial, a new revelation caused a stir. An email recovered by the cybersecurity service showed that 2 weeks before Roze's disappearance, Marie had sent a message to a friend in France saying, "I can't take it anymore. If only I were alone with Roman, without complications." The defense claimed this couldn't be interpreted as intent, but the prosecution used it to suggest a possible desire to eliminate obstacles to the relationship. With this unexpected development, the jury began to view the case not just as a crime committed by a disturbed man, but as a series of shared decisions, albeit to different degrees. Public opinion was further divided. In April 2009, the court reached its final stage. Both the defense and prosecution presented their closing arguments. The prosecution was emphatic. It argued that Roman had acted with premeditation and that Marie had at least contributed to the concealment of the crime. According to prosecutors, the motive was clear. The child was seen as an impediment to the couple's relationship. Marie's defense, on the other hand, claimed she was emotionally manipulated and dominated by Roman. Her lawyer portrayed her as a fragile woman, lost in a toxic relationship, incapable of reacting to what was happening around her. He stated that although Marie made mistakes, she never participated directly in the act and should not be convicted as a culprit. The judge allowed Roman to speak before sentencing. In a low and emotionless tone, he said he never intended to hurt anyone and that everything got out of control. He did not admit to the crime, but neither did he deny the facts presented. Marie, asked if she wanted to say anything, simply said, "I miss my daughter every day." After 2 weeks of deliberation, the verdict came in May 2009. Roman Zadorov was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Marie Charlotte Pizem was found guilty of negligence and obstruction of justice and sentenced to several years in prison. The court emphasized that although she had not killed the girl, her silence and omissions contributed to the crime going unsolved for months. The case shocked Israeli society not only because of the brutality of the crime, but also because of the complex web of family relationships involved. A story that began as a disappearance turned into a disturbing tale of passion, power, and tragedy. The Roze Pizem case became a symbol in Israel of how domestic violence and emotional manipulation can hide behind seemingly normal relationships. After the trial, numerous debates emerged on television, radio, and newspapers about the responsibility of society in identifying signs of abuse and psychological control. Marie's story sparked movements in favor of more psychological support for women involved in toxic or abusive relationships. On the other hand, many critics argued that the justice system was lenient with her, considering that she had knowledge of the disappearance and failed to act. The girl's father, Roze Pizem, returned to France shortly after the trial. In a brief interview before leaving Israel, he said, "They took everything from me, but justice was done." His sadness was evident, and he refused to give further interviews. Roze was buried in a private ceremony with few attendees, and her name became known throughout the country as a painful reminder of how even within families, danger can lurk. Books, documentaries, and news specials explored every detail of the case. Rose's face, which had become familiar from missing person posters, was now a symbol of innocent lives lost in situations where adult decisions go terribly wrong. To this day, the Roze Pizem case is studied in universities and law schools in Israel. It became a reference point in criminal psychology, legal analysis of complicity, and family law. One of the questions still debated is, if Marie had spoken earlier, could Roze have been saved, or was it already too late from the moment she got involved with Roman? Even after years, public opinion remains divided. Many see Marie as a passive victim of Roman's control, while others believe she was an accomplice who chose her romantic relationship over her daughter's safety. Psychologists, journalists, and lawyers revisit the details and continue to seek answers to a tragedy that may never be fully understood. In 2016, a non-profit organization in Israel launched a project in Rose's name aimed at preventing child abuse and emotional manipulation within families. The goal is to offer education, guidance, and legal support to families at risk, so that cases like Rose's do not happen again. And so ends one of the most disturbing and tragic chapters in Israel's recent criminal history. A story that reminds us of the fragility of childhood, the complexity of human relationships, and the devastating consequences of silence. What do you think Marie is really keeping quiet about? Leave your theory in the comments. If you liked this story, like it and share it with those who like real mysteries.